that means that we have to figure out a way to make whatever changes, whatever we need to make sure that this budget balances. So, anyway, part of what I wrote down there, is we are gonna look at a tax increase. We have not increased taxes. Matter of fact, the past 5 years, there's been an overall 2% reduction in taxes, since 2020, I believe. I will verify that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. So there hasn't been any tax increase in those years, a tax rate increase. So, anywho, that's one of my bullet points down there. And, I do want to hear from city staff, and we will tonight, but I also want to I'd like to hear from the elected officials of things that are of priority to you. I know we've talked about kind of, what priorities are, but it is something that I would like to hear, and I believe that the criticisms to me, while they may be, I don't take it personal, I think constructive criticism is good. I think if we get that criticism from the council, I think it's good, and I appreciate that. So, anywho, the next slide here.
In that case,
Yeah. Again, and part of what some of the staff did a pretty good job of doing is in my opinion, we are doing more with less. I think I gave a presentation some years back regarding ratios and our number of employees to, and I compared them per thousand to other communities and also compared to the county, as far as how many employees we have to serve our population. And our ratio was a heck of a lot lower than most. And so what I mean by that is we are doing as best we can with the staff we have. And a lot of times, as Crystal alluded to with her little picture there, there are many hats. There's a lot of people that have a lot of hats and they're doing things that, quite frankly, may not fit their job description. In saying that, I will say this, I believe that the city over the past few years has been generous to provide the increases that we've provided. When we talk about increase, we may talk the number of times we've increased, but I'd also ask the council to look at the actual amount of the increase. So per individual, meaning if a person based on our study received a $6,000 or $7,000 or $10,000 increase, which is happening, the question becomes on that end. I'll give you an example. There's people that have been here 30, 40 years that have not seen an increase of maybe a penny a year. That's what's happened prior to the study. It's pennies on the dollar that people have seen increases. And again, I don't want to speak for, but there's two people that I can think of here in this room that have experienced that, that have been here for numerous amount of years and never seen a significant increase. Now, in saying that, the council, the past few years, again, at least the past 3 or 4 years, have been generous enough to recognize that some of these increases are long overdue, in my opinion. But that's, and we also have to plan on that end, is we have to plan to make sure that these people, to your point, Councilmember Trevino, that there is an expiration date to these guys. I mean, these guys are, I say expiration, not that they're gonna die.
how do you say that?
We're all gonna die.
But retirement is looming for people. And so we do have to recognize that's happening, and we, as best we can as city managers and department heads, recognize that we need to start looking for potential replacements. And it's not to kick people out. That's not the intent. So part of what the discussion is, do you have somebody that can jump in to take on these roles? That's one of the things that we're working on, is having some sort of succession. Is who's gonna jump in, again, I hope Chris is here another 20, 30 years, but who's gonna jump in the role of the Parks Director that's been here 30 years? Don't get offended by that, Rand, but that's truly the case. Is you have people that have been here a long time, that have devoted a lot of time to the city, good or bad, but they've been. So anyway, that's where I wanted to just talk about some of this stuff. Part of what Crystal mentioned, she's gonna help with the flood administration of our floodplain. What's happened over the course of the years, and she probably may or may not know this, we participate in the flood insurance policy. That's what sets your ratings, your ISO ratings, that and fire. So what we need on our end is there's a chapter in your code of ordinances that's strictly for floodplains. The The county has a floodplain administrator, but that part of it, there's nobody at the city level. We need to have somebody that's dedicated to helping us with floodplains. So what we get a lot is when people come in, particularly developers, one of the things they wanna know is am I in a floodplain? And show me where that floodplain is at. People that are truly interested in developing the city, that's one of the questions that are asked. And how do we go around to work with whatever your floodplain, where it's at, where it's located, and how do we need to work on to make sure that we can develop in this, certain sites. So Crystal will be part of the development team. She has done some permitting, and to her credit, as best she could, but it was imperfect to say the least. And it hasn't just been with Crystal. It's been a whole a learning curve for a lot of folks to get better at what we're doing regarding development, permitting, the whole process of our codes of ordinances, the whole gamut. We do have some good people on the team, but again, part of what we're trying to do, we also have our code enforcement officer that's working on fire inspections. He'll be helping us with fire inspections. I'll give you an example of the importance of that. Right now, most commercial buildings, I don't want to be careful what I say. Most commercial buildings lack things that are required per fire code. Your occupancy load. Every commercial building should have an occupancy load. If you go around town and look and see around your commercial establishments, how many have occupancy loads? We're guilty here. We're gonna work on it.
Fire marshal.
James, Leon? No, no teasing. I'm teasing. Part of that has been that challenge of not having a fire marshal. I think the person that was doing that was Rick Ramirez. Rick Ramirez at one time was handling those duties. My understanding is he didn't have all the credentials. I could be wrong. But it's something that Donald's working on. We believe he's gonna have the credentials. I know he's been part of the fire department for several years. So I think he'd be a good fit for us. He's doing a good job, in my opinion, he's doing code enforcement work. And then the other one is the public, and I think I'm forgetting one. Richard has been doing a good job with us as far as our building permits, and so inspections. So part of that is getting these people trained up to make sure that if they can help us, if they can do building official work, it'd be great to have them, great to keep them. Bianca's gonna be helping us on the economic development front, and part of what we have not done, or again, we need help and work with, is making sure that we're, to your point, Councilmember Trevino, that we're conveying the message. There's really we haven't made a concerted effort to reach out to businesses, to try to get new businesses to come to town. Most of the businesses we've seen have come, it's not because we're out there looking, it's because they've just come to us, and we've been fortunate enough to land some developments, and you'll see some this year. But it's not that effort, and what we need is to make sure that people know what we're offering as far as incentives, but also we need to be able to provide people data to say this is why you need to come to Pearson, because we have X, Y, and Z, and that's what we're going to work on this year. I can tell you this: there's things that we still need data we need to provide and gather to get the developers what they want. One example I think I gave y'all is housing. I know we've been talking about housing. The question, there's some information in the comprehensive plan that discusses housing. The question that developers ask me again, they'll say, well, how much housing do you need? Part of that is in the comprehensive plan, right? The other part is I truly, without looking and doing more analysis, I truly can't give them a number. You need 80 or 100 apartment units. I don't have that information, okay? It's still information that we still have to, but my point is there's things like that we need to work on. I think I showed Mr. Leal, I may have showed other council members, the amount of traffic that you generate at HEB. Does anybody have an idea how much traffic is generated on a daily? You generate about 1.2 million customers a year that walk in and out of HEB every year. So we gathered that information. It's just an example that I can give you. And what we're gonna do and we're gonna work on is getting that data so people will know. And then the question becomes, okay, where are those people coming from? And how often are they visiting that store? That's just one example of what I'm talking about. When we have events, one of the examples I'll give you is when we had our parade, when we were talking to a group we're talking to, that does this analysis, they were able to tell us December the 8th that we had a lot of traffic downtown. And I said, I don't know what that means. I didn't know at the time. We did a little, what do you want to call it?
Zoom.
It's a little, and so basically what they did is a geofence, you know, if anybody knows what a geofence is, basically it's basically gets a map of your downtown or your area and gives you the analysis on what it is that you're trying to look for. So what they were able to determine on December the 8th, we had a lot of traffic downtown. And it didn't dawn on me to figure out what was going on, but December the 8th, does anybody know what that was?
Right.
That was our parade, yes. And they were able to give us the data on how many people were in the downtown area on that day based on your cell phone. That's one example, and all that is AI driven. It's stuff that we know it's advanced more than what I probably would like to feel comfortable with. But it is out there. The information is there. We just need to get
It'll
it.
track like, okay, if they're coming from one location, okay, they're going to our HEB. What are the common places that they're going to after they go to HEB? Are they going to Walmart? Are they going home? Are they going, which areas? And we do have a lot of heavy traffic from Divine, Dilley, Catula, as well as a lot from San Antonio. But, it's got to do with our staff too. We've got a lot of staff that come from San Antonio in our PED. So it tracks all of that information.
So we're gonna be working on that, and we're gonna try to gather as much information and data to present to potential people who wanna come into town, to do business with the city. We're gonna capture the data, and hopefully we can provide them the information they need to make a good decision. Anyway, but that, I wanted to mention that to you. Is there another, am I out of slide? I hope I am. We have even begun to do, again, as I mentioned to you before, those are the grants, and we will, part of that you'll find in your budget, others you will not, yet, but we will put them in there. The home grant, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the home grant is there is gonna be some sort of commitment by the city. I wanna say it's at least $100,000 or in-kind services. If it's 10 homes, I think it's $14,000 a home, if I'm not mistaken. So it's about $140,000 commitment that the city will have to make. My assumption will be this year. We had a Parks and Wildlife match. The good news is we did get a visit from ACOG this past week, and there is an EPA grant they're going to be applying for. It's a $30 million grant, and we want our $30 million if we can get it. We are going to make a push to try to secure that grant, to be a part of it at the very least, and then we do need to consider when we're applying for these grants the matching part, because not every grant is going to be just a grant. It's going to be it requires a match on our end. So again, part of what I want to convey to the council is just that, is there are going to be expenses that we historically have not incurred and grants that we have not gone after that we're going after, but again, it does require a match. So I want to make sure that that's clear. Right now, we're looking at our match this coming year to include the Parks and Wildlife grant, the CDBG grant, the, what other one am I forgetting? Is a little about $1 million to $1.2 million of our match. We are matching from our budget about $1.2 million, I believe. So that includes $250,000 for the bar screen, $750,000 for the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant, another match for the solid waste, the air curtain incinerator we don't get this year, and then I'm missing another one. I know. But anyway, my point is that there's dollars on our end that we're going to have to set aside. Anything else that I'm missing on the grant part of it?
Did you talk about the increase on the CDBG costs?
Yes. The CDBG, again, there is going to be an increase, but I will go over that with you guys at another. Last but not least, there are things that we know are not in the budget that either, based on tonight's discussion, that we'll either include or exclude. Part of what I'd like to hear from the council is, again, the events, because I know we ran into it last year, this year with the July 4th, and it's a dollar amount. It's not just a dollar amount, right? It's are we going to do it, and are we gonna take the time and effort to do this event as a staff, or how are we going to handle this? You have another $150,000 expense you're going to see to Hispanic Heritage this coming year. You will see that expense, and it'll be in the budget. And so there's a lot of expenses that that, are bigger. And our last one is gonna be, the big monster is gonna be the dollar amount that we're gonna need for the water and wastewater on 35. That'll be, you'll have that information next week for sure. As far as the actual budget summary, I'm not gonna go into every part of my budget, but it's basically, we had an increase total of about $20,000. It's part of my salary, and then the full-time clerk, the one that's up here, is paid out of the admin budget. We are including, as the council member asked, a one-time pay incentive was included for all full-time employees that are not currently on probation. And so that's one time that we're asking for a $2,000 incentive for one-time pay. We're not proposing any increases, any salary increases, for anybody, but if anybody that we may, increase is gonna be because of the final rule, but I don't anticipate hardly any increases for just individuals, I'll put it that way. So we are, and again, this is all subject to change. If we can't do it, and we can't balance the budget, we will look to make those cuts. I made one error here. I'm telling you as a council, part of what we need to consider, again, as far as cuts, which I'm saying is part of my budget as well, I'm saying, and I'm giving them to you now, potential cuts that we need to look at, that should be but not limited to travel expenses, community promotions, and economic development line item. Those are items that are in my budget, you'll see them in there, they're in each individually there. And what I mean by travel expenses and meetings, those are discussions, again, where, whether it's my travel, the council's travel, those would be discussions that I'd like to have now, if possible, to discuss what we need to do, or what we wanna do with future travel as it relates to meetings, whether it's, you know, at the Capitol in DC, the state capitol, DC, conferences that we attend. Those are all part of the administration budget, and so, again, if y'all have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
With that being said, Mayor, and council, I was talking to Fred on the grant part of it with EMC strategy. We haven't seen much on that end of it, I mean, that's my opinion. So why not change the game here and give Mr. Gonzalez, say, you know what, we want to target these 6 grants for this year, to focus on these grants that we're proposing based on whatever we're gonna be, if it's the sports complex, whatever, it's gonna target, water, waste usage, whatever, and give him that duty and say on it, because, I'm sure that many of us have heard, so Divine got almost a $5 million, grant to build a multi-purpose facility, from Tony's office.
Yes.
It's upsetting the fact that for some reason Pearsall, Frio County it's just being skipped in many different areas. So, so traveling, and we're gonna be traveling again to DC, well then, at least we're gonna be traveling for that purpose. And we're gonna go after those grants and those people that we really have to meet with, instead of just meeting with different, entities here and there. So, that's just my opinion, to go and say, you know what, these are the 5 grants we need you to work on, EMC strategy, and we focus on this. Because ultimately, I mean, it's an area that I think, as we move forward and we're productive in all these that we want, everything we wanna bring in, from housing to free infrastructure, all that, we need to focus on certain grants that are gonna help us utilize these expenses and offset these expenses. We can't just wait around to see, well, what's coming up, or who's keeping track of this, or what's going on with this, to where if we give it to Ms. Moran or Fred, whatever the case is, hey, this is what he should be working on.
I would agree with that, is have the main focus on so many grants, but I would also keep it, these are the priorities,
Yep.
but not bypass any other thing that come up, because in the middle of the year, a grant can come up, just say for PD.
Yeah.
And we might have a good opportunity where we not limited, focus on these, but not limited to that.
Yes.
just in case new grants come up. I mean, we don't wanna lose out, you know, halfway through the year, the government has a bunch of money like they have, and they just spend it rather than keep it.
You know, one of the things I would propose for that is we get just a little handout in our packet that lists those, and don't necessarily need to go over them, but that you guys can stay up with where they are. And I know there's some questions, but to each of y'all's, what he's talking about there, I do spend a little bit of time with Fred in here, and we're going after him. We're going after him, and it is, I've said this before, it painstaking